5 minutes, 6 minutes ago.
Hey,
Hey, it's Saturday!
People will trickle in.
Each of there's caster stuff on the side over here. What's up? We did a show for you.
yeah.
You did
Did that happen? Holy crap.
Well, thanks a lot.
Good night. Shortest talkback ever.
Did we do that?
Juicy, your question.
You live streaming this?
Hey Molly, it started.
We have to start over.
Just half hours on the top.
5 minutes ago was 5 minutes.
Yay!
Now they just fight over
All
the
right, ladies and
chair.
gentlemen. Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hello!
My name is Brian Ortiz, ladies and gentlemen. For those that don't know me, I worked on the credits. I got to direct 2 episodes, and I'm honored to always get to hang out with these very cool people. So, pluses for me all across the board. For those that have never been here before to do this, traditionally at the end of these wonderful serials, we like to do talkback sessions. And these are ways for audience members or people who have stayed with us the entire time to ask questions about characters, ask questions about writing, directing, styles, influences, costuming, anything they'd like to tonight. That's the goal. Let's just have some fun and answer some questions. I'll be your moderator. When they tell me to stop, we'll be done. But until then, it's question time, ladies and gentlemen. So, anyone have a question? Raise your hand if you have a question for this cast, for the crew, for the writers, anything. Yes?
Where did you get the music for the intro?
That's a big question. Holy crap. Did not expect that. Sorry. Actually, no, it was very simple. Me and Scott always have these wonderful conversations about, I ask him what you need, and he has these great influences to go by. And I was at his house, and the first thing he says, "Have you seen the trailer for Dracula?" I was like, "You made another one?" And he was like, "Yeah, check it out." And so it had the song that I heard on there, and I was just blown away. And I think it's also from like Hunger Games. So I got blown away by it, right? And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So Scott introduced the song to me, and that actually influenced the entire piece because it was so powerful, and it was very, very easy to do.
It was
So.
originally a Tears for Fears.
Yeah, it's a Tears for Fears song, but I mean, it's been made
Those of us who are
plenty
old
ways.
Enough to remember it.
But it was a really great song, and he came already prepared with it, and it was a lot of fun to work with as far as creating visuals and background. So that's the history of the song.
Thank you.
Why we used it, at least.
Okay.
Cool. Good start. Yes.
So a lot of y'all were like double or even triple cast. For those of you who were, which was your favorite character?
Ooh. Anyway,
Kyla.
Hey, just
TikTok, absolutely.
Just start that way and start working down.
Yes.
Oh.
I was just itchy.
Will Henchman.
I've got a soft spot for Queen Winter. I liked playing Reflection last week. She was a lot of fun as an introduction to the Queen's Reflection. That's a lot of fun.
There you go.
Skip me. Ditto.
I really like Bale, but I am looking forward to playing more of the Red King.
Yeah! Giving a spin-off, it's going to be great. It's going to be a comedy.
Knock on our dungeon.
How many times did you watch that news report of Fritzl in Austin? Honestly, I really like the March Hare. He's a lot of fun. He gets a lot of just very different mates. And that dynamic is real fun to explore, but Nicholas is more emotional than I've ever had a role, and exploring that side of the process is just infinitely rewarding. But really, I guess it doesn't matter because people are going to die in my arms, whoever I am. Scott, which version of yourself do you like?
I like me 10 years ago. He was happier. Angry and everything.
Everyone dies.
Well, I played 2 characters. Actually, I played the lion and was it Tinker or Smith? Which was
Smith.
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 And they were
Yeah, you like my child. Let's move back real quick, Morgan.
What did you like playing?
Did you like?
What was your favorite
Oh,
character?
I did. I mean, you know, Monkey Guard's always fun because you get to get bludgeoned and just fall down and stay on stage forever, and that's fun. But Emma was just really nice. Even though it was, you know, a brief, maybe minute and a half scene, it was so nice to set up the world and set up what kind of pain the Red Queen was going through. And really deep and moving.
So you mean Wonderland Emma though, not.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and Emma's fun too, but I really liked Emma.
Oh, that's right, you did.
I know.
As if someone had planned it that way.
And I takes over for this episode for both of them.
Chris, did you do too?
Okay. Monkey Shaker. Huh? And we had Dormouse and.
I really liked playing the Dormouse, and I was looking forward to playing with her for season 2. But for the 3 episodes the Dormouse was in, I enjoyed it. I think you guys loved me.
Yeah.
Break the things you love.
Yes.
Nate.
Best character ever.
Toto was a lot of fun because I got to do what I never get to do, which is be someone who doesn't fight. And but Mad Hatter is basically Charles Bronson, so I mean, so the Hatter was just my first accent I've ever had to do for one thing, so that was fun.
There you go.
I love the Duchess. I really liked that character, and it was my favorite up until this episode, and then after this one, White Rabbit beat Duchess. I'm really looking forward to it. He's a real good, complex character, and I'm looking forward to playing with that.
Yeah.
It's a hard toss-up, man.
I know what it
It's
is.
definitely between the Knave and it was my Magician. It's
Yeah.
the two sides, but man, I love that character just being a brawler. That's what I loved about the Knave. I mean, he's just he loves what he does, and his what he does is pain. And Magician, I've always had a soft spot for villains. I really like being evil. Really like being evil. So that was definitely entertaining from that perspective. The thinking ahead, having all these planned out moves. It didn't work at the end, but still, he was evil. I mean, all the other ones I look forward to see what happened more. I mean, with the Carpenter, you know, since he was kind of like the Duchess's guard in a way, but I kind of wonder more about the perspective of what happened with Walrus. So, I don't know. Just I kind of, I don't know. I'm hoping there'll probably be more with the Carpenter. But overall, it's definitely the hard toss-up between the Knave and the Magician. Yeah.
There's your answer. All right.
Well, I was consistently one character for most of the show. I really liked being a card guard during the wedding. That was fun stuff. Thank you for putting me in that
There you
scene.
go.
That was great.
yeah.
I got to take down 2 monkey guards and die at the same time as Lily.
Yes.
But I've been looking forward to Dark Alice, for Evil Alice for 8 episodes, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for season 2. The last little bit, I had so much fun with that.
For the Red Queen. So was it planned from the beginning that you would have a new costume every episode?
Yes.
How difficult was it to make a new or double costume?
This question's not for me.
Turn around! And did you have a say in what you would wear? Because sometimes like some things were revealing or not revealing enough, or
Not really. Like I said, I just put on the things.
I like those things. Yes.
vested interest in those things.
So passing that back
Oh, am I
to.
fielding that now?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's
you-
you slash Sophie.
Yeah,
slash-
so the first 2 episodes, I was otherwise involved with another show, so I didn't handle the beginning of her stuff. But from the corset on, that was mine. It was a really unique challenge because I would have to take into account everything that she would have to do. Obviously, there's a good amount of movement going into that, and especially once we got reflection involved, having to create 2 completely identical costumes, and then since reflection is starting to get tweaked now, kind of changing up the costume, and it was a really interesting challenge to do that on a weekly basis.
Right.
And just having to crank them out like that. I mean, you know, Sophie had a lot more to do with the costumes as a whole than I did, but it's, I mean, I think that goes for any character.
Well, we had about 4 or 5 talented ladies helping us. I know
Yeah.
Vicky made that really awesome.
Yes.
The card collar,
what-
yes.
The card collar.
Yeah.
Vanessa Eichler helped a lot. And so at the top of the show, we had like a big costume meeting, and we just sat down and assigned 4 or 5 characters to one costumer and tried to keep them in the worlds. Like, okay, you're gonna do 5 characters from Oz, so hopefully your costuming design will have a aesthetic that will keep in that world. And you know, while Oz kind of had almost a more of a Renaissance feel to it at times, we kind of went with whatever we wanted to with Wonderland and a little bit more Victorian. And so all the ladies that helped out did obviously a really cool, awesome job with it. I mean, that freaking card collar was just
Inspired.
I was like, I need 2 more and one that can like spring up when the Red Queen's cornered.
Gotta make myself look big.
I'll spray something when happens.
Yeah, like the thing that got Dennis Nedry. And,
Yes. Somehow. Make it shake just a little more time.
Yeah, all the talented costume ladies did an awesome job. Marketing. Well, I mean, for the purpose of the Kickstarter, we needed something that was iconic visually, so that people knew what we were getting on board with. And then I tried to merge those things where if you were here for the whole show, that in some of the flashbacks that we had, you saw more of that traditional Wicked Witch costume, and that the idea was that the Wicked Witch that we see now is that she's changed, so she doesn't need the traditional witch's garb, and she's kind of become more of an evil Joan of Arc type person.
And that much green makeup is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Having done the blue.
At the beginning of the show, you saw that she had kind of the armor and that green battle mask, and the idea was, just primarily just being a lazy writer, is that I didn't want my actors having to put green makeup on 8 weeks. And that, well, I was like, well, what if we just made it where she had a battle mask, and that legend has spread that this green-faced female warrior just kicks the shit out of everything.
Okay.
And there's kids here, sorry. Excrementorum out of everything. And so, hopefully, hopefully for those that were here for the whole 8 weeks, it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
But the easiest idea was that trying to get help for the Kickstarter, we needed something that was visually identifiable.
Yes.
This is kind of for Morgan, but mostly for the actual actors. For all of the combat scenes, how hard was it to work with the various pieces of costuming that armor and animal pieces?
You've seen The Incredibles?
No cakes.
No cakes.
We have a big fight, they go, I'm gonna give this line and drop my cake. It is a pain in the ass. The only one that keeps it on is the knight, and that's because he just physically can't take it off.
I can't lift his arm.
But we do.
At the 8 o'clock show, Toto lost his ear in the fight.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
At least we're consistent.
But he did sell losing the ear.
Yeah, he did.
He totally sold it.
He was like, my
That's not canon though.
Oh.
So.
That two more times.
We had
Here it
to
comes,
slice
man.
it off.
Notice a lot of the time we actually do incorporate the costumes into it. I mean, anytime I've got somebody with armor, usually I will have them specifically getting hit in that armor, just because it makes a really nice noise and it's easy for them to absorb the blow, and we can cover that sight line. So, oftentimes it's an asset, but sometimes it's a pain in the ass. And if it's a pain in the ass, we remove it if we can, and if we can't, then we just deal with it.
Yeah, for the first half of the series, Bale's signature fighting move is shoot and then run away. So I actually kind of liked having the long coat, because then I could be like, dramatic swish, and then I'd retreat that way. It came in handy.
Yeah, see, I've actually been really lucky because during rehearsals, there have been more than 7 instances where my buckle would just pop open and my sheath would just be like hanging out. Just like flowing freely. Like yesterday during rehearsal, when Sarah knocked me down, it just popped open. I was like, screw that sheath. I don't need it. I've always been so afraid that my garters are just gonna like snap. It's a constant fear when I get on stage. I'm like,
I feel the same way with my zippers. Suck it in.
You know, us having a week to do every episode, less than a week to do every episode, we just kind of gotta have to run with what we've got, and so.
And what we got was still awesome.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Question for the whole cast. Having done serialized episodes here, what are your favorite moments backstage, or running jokes, or things that went wrong that you had to deal with on stage?
Jenny works out. I will add to that. Let's keep it brief. Go ahead.
Keeping track of your props.
TikTok's helmets. TikTok's helmet flying off.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The constant teasing of everyone knew eventually when Kaimo would die.
Starting with episode 1.
There's a sign in the back that says Kaimo lives.
She's had the longest
No,
death
there's a
scene
thing.
in
The
8
majority of us have
episodes.
worked together before, and Jenny has joined us for this serial, and she's been a great addition. But for the entire time, basically since episode 1, we've been joking that the next episode is the one where Jenny dies. She's been a really good sport, and she's been the butt of a lot of jokes. And, she's been very good.
Go Jenny.
There were actually so many inside jokes written into this episode.
Yeah.
Like when he kills her, he's like, "Oh, that took longer than expected." that was for us.
What did you
more
call
than
it?
for you.
Wonder Oz?
Yeah, that was actually written in last episode, and it was changed last minute, Wonder Oz, and that's why it came back for this episode.
And we also complained at Scott,
We had
so
an
we
argument
changed
over
it.
whether or not it was a silly name.
Because as a writer,
Slazen.
as a writer, you're trying to I come up with this idea to merge the lands, and what's a good merging of Wonderland and Oz, and there really isn't one. And so it's like Wazerland, or if I could do it visually, it'd be Wonderland, but the O looks like the Oz symbol. So the Wonder Oz was the working name for it, but that just sounds terrible. And so the official name was the Wonderful Land.
The wonderful land of Oz.
The Wonderland of Oz. Oh, I'm sorry.
I actually had one, I think it was in episode 3, I forget which. It was just a great moment because everyone on stage did a really great job improvising around it. There was a moment in the Smoke and Mirrors where we've got the Red Queen and the Witch together and they're negotiating, and unfortunately the Witch's glass fell off the table during one of the runs, and I have a monitor headset in there so I can hear everything they do, and I heard glass break and just kind of stand up and looking, going, what the hell is going on stage? And Siobhan just looks at the magician and hisses out, get that girl in here to clean it up. And then Chris Kelly comes out with a broom, brings transition,
and just pushes off what we can and kind of looks at the audience and just gives us a big so, like, the cast works so well together, and that was a great example of that.
I clean up my own messes. Are you silly?
Episode 1.
That was episode 1.
Was that
First,
Oh yeah.
first week, get on the stage, and I was like, I have to fight there. Oh, right for that glass broke. Big sleeves. Snark.
A few episodes ago, there was a fight with TikTok. It had a really stylized kind of freeze frame. How did you come up with that? Did you draw inspiration from anything? It was really nice.
We had a lot of choreography that fight, and it was a shortcut.
Yeah, most of it is laziness.
We studied old martial arts.
Lisa Truffaut did it a lot.
Yeah.
When I was writing the script, it was just like, let's try something different, just visually. I thought it'd be interesting, and also since I was in that fight, I was like, I don't want to fight a lot. And then it was the best of both worlds. It was a shortcut that served a purpose.
Yeah.
Well done.
It looked good.
This is a question for Scott. When you started writing Queen's Castle, did you know you wanted to make a second series, or did maybe sometime between writing episodes 4 and 7 you decide, hey, I want to keep doing this?
No, I initially pitched it as a series. We recently wrapped up the Adventures of Captain Cortez and the Tri-Lambda Brigade. And so that was a series that I wrote and directed for 4 years, and that was one of our late night staples. And that's what's really cool about the overtime, is that when most of these are shutting down for the night, we're just now swinging into our second block of programming, essentially. And so, just from an overtime standpoint, we now have a time slot that isn't going to be filled, and that kind of has a following. And for people in San Antonio that want to come out and do stuff late night, so the idea was to do the 8 weeks format again and see how that goes. And then we're going to take a 3-month hiatus, and then season 2 of Queen's Castle will pick up in January in the monthly format that Captain Cortez filled, where at the last weekend of each month you can come see the next episode of Queen's Castle. And it'll run for 6 months, and then we'll take another 3-month hiatus, and then season 3, that's as far as I've got it planned out till season 3. And then I guess it's kind of up to y'all whether it goes from there, because as long as it keeps selling well and is popular, we'll keep it. So.
When you were writing this season of Queen's Castle, I know you went into the books and went pretty deep. I mean, there's some characters that, unless you've actually read all the books, you wouldn't really recognize. Without giving anything away about next season, were there any characters you really wanted to somehow get into this season that you just couldn't?
No, everything, I'm happy with everybody that's in here. Yeah, I mean, it was really awesome going back and reading the original books. If you haven't in a while, go back and reread them. There was a lot of stuff for a wannabe writer like myself to mine from. Just little stuff like the silver slippers instead of the ruby slippers, where the silver slippers became the ruby slippers because Technicolor had just been invented, and they wanted something more shinier for movies. And so I was like, oh, that's a cool little fun fact. But there was just so much to draw from in the books. And yeah, so season 2 and 3, obviously we have a lot of characters that we haven't even touched upon yet. Like, I mean, Tweedledee and Tweedledum are iconic, and we've only mentioned them in maybe 2 or 3 lines. And so, and that's the idea, is that we have a lot more interesting characters to draw from, and hopefully keep the series fresh and interesting. But the original books were really awesome and fun to read, and Alice in Wonderland had a ton of stuff, Oz had a ton of stuff, so hopefully it worked out in a cool interpretation of it.
Chris Kelly has spent a few weeks campaigning for, was it Lizard Bill?
Bill the Lizard. I really want Bill the Lizard to show up.
And trying to be a good literary nerd, yeah, there's tons of little Easter eggs and stuff in here that unless you've read the books and are a good good literary nerd, you're not gonna get it. Like, the Red King mentions like, oh, tonight we're gonna be holding a caucus race, you know, and that's something that's only if you're well versed in the, or at least
For everyone, I remember the first time Fire came out, it was like on a very wobbly table. And I was really scared as the audience member. And so how scared were y'all dealing with a fire?
Firefighter.
Yeah.
Addendum, I'm not a good firefighter.
I would just like to say the first episode when like we saw and was clear flame was going to happen, I'm like, you realize how much hairspray I'm wearing right now? I've got limited field of vision. I'm like, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actor it over to here. I don't think she would look at the flames. I think she'd move away from it. I feel very strongly this character would be away from the
I want to line as many as possible.
Yeah.
Flash paper is
Flash paper is your friend.
They handle it like champs, and I was very grateful that they were on board for that, especially with a low budget show like this. That you know we have to be able to at least give the concept of magic and the. Last episode, we hooked up the fog machine to the cauldron.
Yeah, tell that story.
As you walk out, it's right there to your left. We called it Macaulay Cauldron.
Forces of evil.
Macaulay Skulkin.
Macaulay Skulkin. And so the issue was that we have a little bit of a knowledge of fog machines, but I couldn't find anywhere if that. And so the idea was that inside of the cauldron is a small lip where the candles go, where they can use the flash paper, and then the fog will come out later. I could find nothing if that fog was flammable or not. I just know it superheats a liquid and then vaporizes it. I couldn't find what the fog was made out of. So where Chris Kelly and I tested it, I'm like, all right, Chris Kelly, stand by with the extinguisher. Let's see if the fog's flammable or not. So we just held candles in front of the fog thing and just activated it like. Good news, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so this is not really a question, it's just kind of I have to bring it up.
Okay.
Because I know they'll have to talk about it. But I think it was really smooth how you pulled Kyla's wig back on. Oh my
Bobby pins, Kyla.
No. It's not her fault. That wig sucks. I had the same problem. I would have to go out and be like, oh, I'm so in love with you.
It's hard to find a quality wig in that color. The Duchess wig? Oh, that just worked. That worked.
We had to put a rubber stopper on it so it stayed on it.
Like tape inside so it stayed on my head. One night, only one night, that wig came off 3 times. Eventually I got mad and was like, this damn thing's better.
I think that was the night I went there. That was a great night.
We're really good at improvising, I have to say. That of working with these people. No, but of working with these people when things happen when you don't necessarily want them to, like glass breaking, possibly being flammable.
Well, I mean,
Wig's falling off.
It's a huge undertaking that we tried last year with a series called Port Cove. And it's just, we're trying to do different theater conventions here at the Overtime. And so, an 8-week straight serialized show I'd never seen done in San Antonio before. And so the way that the schedule goes is they're getting the new script on Monday night. They have Monday through Thursday night to get off book, learn fights, put all costumes together, put our tech together. Show opens Friday and Saturday night, do 4 shows Friday and Saturday. They get Sunday off, which they're probably starting to learn lines for the next script. And then you start it all again on Monday. And you do that every single week for 8 weeks.
Plus fight calls.
Yeah, I never said fights in there. And so it's exhausting and it's straight up stupid at times, but it's like all things that are difficult that you undertake that hopefully at the end of it when you're done you think it's worth it.
We love it.
And,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if we we can get 40 to 60 people coming back every single week to see something that we're creating live, local, and original, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Scott,
And
you-
ultimately, without you guys, we're just 20 children playing around in a room. So thank you.
Yes, please.
As a whole production perspective, what was the most unexpected obstacle that came and how did you resolve it?
Can I field that one? Continual fight bruises. Consistent
I'm sorry,
continual
Sophie.
fight
I had to
bruises.
conceal your
It's not an episode
Yes,
unless
you
Dorothy
did.
is beaten down.
Onto the floor. She has to get on the floor at least once.
I think there's always you're putting scheduling. You're putting 16 people in a room and saying, let's all get on the same page. And some people aren't going to be able to do that. We had to have some cast changes. We had to write out certain characters, for different things. So it's always a challenge, like anything, just trying to get a whole group of people on the same page. And so what I've learned from doing Cortez and Port Cove and all those things is that if you can manipulate those challenges appropriately, they become really, really great things. For example, the original actress that we had lined up for the Duchess couldn't do the show. So then I'm looking at Chris Kelly, I'm like, what if the Duchess is a really crazy murderous Eddie Izzard? And it worked out phenomenally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was one of those.
That was a good
We had an issue with Captain Cortez last season where we were supposed to have this complex prop made. We were doing like a fake game show.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So we were supposed to have this complex Jeopardy board.
Which was mostly this man at that point. Say something, Charlie. Oh, yeah, no.
Well, he's not done. He's not
I don't know,
finished.
y'all tell me. We were supposed to have a really complex Jeopardy style board created for us, and it just didn't happen just due to timing. And so the 0 hour, we just made a giant foam core board and cut holes in it and hinged them. And when you chose your category, Michael Ariano would pop up in the window, old school hee-haw style, and would just say the category and then shut the door. And it was the most low-tech, hilarious thing that ever happened. But it was one of the highlights of that episode, only due to us having a problem that we had to think.
Yeah.
Question for Carl, since we're on the topic of multiple serials. Who was your favorite henchman to play?
Actually, as much as I didn't say much or do anything, I'm really looking forward to the possibility of this one expanding on.
Monkey card.
Monkey
Car monkey.
Yeah.
There you go, monkey card.
Monkey card.
Yes.
Okay, general cast question. Your favorite death scene that doesn't involve a character you played?
I loved carrying the Dormouse out.
Dormouse.
And then he came back. And then Chris gets punched in the stomach for 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
I just love that the character was so selfless and I just had 2 great death scenes. He had 2 great death scenes in one show. Wow. Really
Scarecrow
good.
Jesus, yes.
It was a little daunting at first because there was a brief moment where Scott was toying with some different ideas for the final scene and of this season, and one of them that he had considered was when Bale came back to life, and that was a daunting period for me because basically scene 6, Red King makes his exit, scene 7, Bale makes his exit. You got 2 weeks left. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I was like, guess I get to come to the shows. So.
I have tons of little what if notes as a writer, and I'm sure anybody who's written stuff, I know Willie can attest to that. Is that in a different world, there's a really great scene where the knight, the Tin Man, and the lion have that quintessential funeral pyre for the Scarecrow at night, and they just have to, old school Norse style, they burn their friend. And what better kindling?
Shame. He kind of told
You had him wake up.
This doesn't
We're made
seem
out
to
of
be
straw.
a popular opinion amongst us, but I mean, like, it's a tie for me between Bale, because that one was really heart-wrenching, but I really liked the Red Queen's death
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah, yeah. I have to admit, when I saw the wig come off, that was the button on the scene.
And I think that's what's really great about all of our villains and or heroes, and we did this with Cortez as well, is that I think with both of our villainesses, you could see their points. And that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Is that if someone came and killed your sister and stole her stuff, you'd probably be upset too. And if you know, and what wouldn't you do to get a loved one back? And so our villains aren't wrong, and that we all have the capacity to do bad things in order to protect things we love.
Okay.
Should we be expecting a trailer for season 2 in December?
Oh.
Oh yeah!
Everybody still wants to rule the world. There's just some people out of the running.
Would that be the tagline for season 2?
I'm pretty sure, we'll see what happens. Scott's got a lot on his plate, but I'm sure he's got some cooking, and he always likes to call and talk, and we always come up with something interesting that ends up being something completely different that turns out really fun. So I'm sure there'll be a fun teaser or something along the way, because that's always a great way to do stuff. And I always enjoy filming these people because it makes me happy, and I get to practice and make them look cool, and that's awesome.
He
So,
does.
I love it. So
We
it's fun.
come into a dark room and he's like, do some stuff. And so we wave our arms, we put our hands in the air, and then he makes that.
Yeah,
The
that's-
first time we saw the credits, we were like, wow, we really need to get better faster.
The first time we saw the credits, we watched them 4 times in a row and realized that that was the coolest that any of us would ever do.
They really did. They made me keep doing it.
Yeah.
This is our peak.
It's fun. Let's just show them this and then go home.
Well, it's fun to give some video visuals always to go with it. You know what I'm
Just my
saying?
first
You
thing
can
I like
expand the world here and there or something, but it's just fun to put them on screen and show the different sides of them too. That's always amazingly fun to capture. It's really
There's a
simple.
part of the trailer, if you look real close, of the rabbit and Mad Hatter fighting. Yes. And we haven't addressed that yet. But I would assume they had beef.
Who hasn't the rabbit annoyed?
Mad Hatter tried to kill time in the books.
Oh.
By singing so terribly that I almost died.
Which is why
It's so neat.
So like that's still in there, and so like people are like, but you're fighting. Like,
Yeah, I
on the
punched
same
you into
team
technical
now.
or-
Yeah. Well, that might happen.
You did, yeah. It was a hit so hard you had anime speed effects.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
How much does it diverge from when you originally wrote it or conceived of it from when it's actually staged? Does it resemble anything close to
It does. I have, if I'm writing, A to F, then I'll probably plan out maybe D, and then I write to D, and then I see where I'm at, and I want to write. I knew from the beginning what I wanted to. It's easier to write. Figure out your ending first. If you don't have something to write towards, you're just going to be aimless. So figure out your ending first, and I knew that what I wanted to do with the Wicked Witch, the Red Queen, and I wanted to do with Alice and Dorothy. And so the rest of it was just how do we get there? And so trying to figure out, once you start creating all these characters, like, man, I got a ton of characters, and they're all shaping up really, really cool, and so what do we want to do with those? And so there was some question marks as to whether to kill Bale and keep him dead, or should
the actor you had, the knight was going to.
Right, and so I was going to kill the Knight because the actor who was going to play the Knight was going to leave in December. So, well, why not? Let's just kill the Knight. Make people cry with that. And so, yeah, just due to scheduling and circumstances, we came up with some of the story we did, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I think everything as it should be, or else it would be different.
All of you are talented people, and that's pretty obvious. But did you have any of your characters change based on the influence of the actor doing the role?
Absolutely. Because a lot, I guess maybe 60-70% of these people worked on that prior series called Port Cove with me. So, and that was one of the things going into the audition process, is I know what these people are capable of. You know, when Chris Lombardo comes into the room to audition for me, says I'm going to be part of the show, I mean, well, there's my scarecrow, because I know Lombardo's awesome, and he's tall and lanky. And so then when I'm writing those characters, I have that person's voice in my head. Or, you know, I know that Siobhan can do a killer Wicked Witch scream, so let's write that iconic moment in there. And so, yes, the actors influence the characters a lot, because now I have my friends' voices in my head when I write for them, and it helps a lot with what they do. Does that answer your question?
I don't think you really liked the Red King when I brought it to you.
Well, we dialed in the accents.
Yeah, it was.
And so there's a lot that gets. We try to have an open creative process where here's my loose idea, share some of your ideas with me, and then we'll dial it in and we'll come up with a final project. Or else it's no fun for anybody, you know. And so Lombardo, first with the Red King, he came in with like this completely over the top Marlon Brando accent, and it was. I was like, that's stupid. He was like, just let me work on it. Just let me work on it. And then it turned out amazing.
So creepy.
And that's what's.
Once we twisted it from silly to creepy, then that's what.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm not a good director. I just cast smart people, and then they're gonna do all the work for us.
What's your note? Actor? Just go ahead and
Just
act.
And I think that, I mean, isn't that one of the secrets to life? Just surround yourself with good people.
Yeah. Actually, to touch on what Rose asked earlier about what our favorite parts were backstage or during the rehearsal process, the Red King was hysterical because the only thing we could do to prevent ourselves from being 1,000% creeped out was joke about it. We're like,
I also
pretty
have
flower.
this really bad habit as an actor. I like to rehearse, and then when we go into the performance, I'll add a detail or something because I like trying to enhance my character and catch the other actors off guard. Things like touching Lily's face on stage without telling her. So I mean, again, it's a bad habit as an actor. You shouldn't really do that. You shouldn't be trying to do it, but it's a very organic part, and it's probably my favorite part of acting in general and this show and this cast is that with all of those things, everybody kind of rolls with the punches all together. A lot of things sort of just come through because we don't really need to communicate about it. And the more that it goes along, the more in sync we are. Like you said, we each have we've got 5 days with the script, and it's really only through the strength and talent of all the people surrounding us that we're able to actually do it. So I don't know, great people that we work with. That's all.
Loaded question for you about the writing process. So, first of all, when did you conceive the show, and did you start writing it very shortly after that? And how long does it take you to write an episode?
I want to know it all.
7 days. 3 questions.
No more than one answer, so it's okay.
What was the
When did you
first one?
first think of
When was
it? When did you
conceived?
start writing it? How long did it
It started with a Batman Superman comic book. Batman and Superman are fighting Hawkman and Shazam. And Batman and Superman, in case you don't know, are an amazing duo. Despite all their differences, they work well together. Because one's the Boy Scout and one's the villain. And they castled villains. And I remember reading that, I was like, that's not really how castling works, because I love chess. And castling is a very specific move that only the rook, only the rook and the king can do it. But in this moment, in a Batman Superman comic book, they used it in a much larger term. Let's just switch pieces. And I was like, what? If they can do it, why can't we? And I really liked Strangers on a Train, and because I'm a noir and old movie fan, and so I just a hodgepodge of that, of where, well, that's an interesting idea of just swapping pieces. And I've always enjoyed Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, so there's an idea there. You just kind of think on it for a year or two, and then we were just submerged in Captain Cortez for 4 years, and then Porco was another crap that I write. And then the idea was finally there, and I was like, okay, I think I have this solid idea of, you know, the Red Queen and Wicked Witch get together, and I really wanted to write a show with 4 female leads, and that's not something that I see a lot in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, we got a lot of cool chicks around here. What can we do? And so came up with the idea and pitched it last year, and they said, okay, go for it. You seem to crank out a lot of crap. So what was the other part of it?
How far in advance do you write?
How long does it take?
Sunday night.
Sunday night, you write for the next week?
Yeah.
Killing me right now.
I was asking you down 911.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I write a script in about 5 days. So we opened this up Friday. They read it last Saturday. Last Saturday, and I finished it that Saturday.
Ooh.
Yeah. Why are you making the noises?
I don't know how you do it. Just don't.
Stubbornness. That's what built this country. It comes down to responsibilities. I've told these people I'm going to produce something, and all the poor man has is his word, and I told them I'd do it. So shit, there's 12 people dependent. Sorry. So there's 15 people dependent upon me, and I need to just drop all my crap and get it done. And so it just seems to, so far it keeps working out. It seems to be. So yeah, usually they'll get the script on Friday, and I'll immediately the next day I'll start on writing the very next episode, and then try to crank out the details, and then have it done five days later. So it's not that bad. It's only like 20 pages. Everybody can write a page a day, and if you're motivated, you write 4 or 5 pages a day, and then before you know it, you have a script. And that's the thing that frustrates me a lot, is that I have a lot of talented friends and people that are the greatest writers that will never be, because they say I have this really great idea, but they never put anything on paper because they're still working out the minutia or whatever type of BS they want to tell themselves to keep themselves from creating something. And that's all just BS, because you just need to jump in and get the process started. And it's an old quote that you can't edit a blank page. So even if you don't think it's the best idea in the world, at least put something on that paper, draw something on that canvas or whatever, just get it going, and then before you know it, you'll be done.
Question for Sophie. From a character standpoint, taking the stance that there are no good guys or bad guys, just people in different situations, you as Dorothy have 2 up on the Wicked Witch, and she hasn't really gotten direct revenge on you yet. It's kind of like the warpath of everything around you. As a character, do you feel like your comeuppance is 9?
I'm not sure. Honestly,
like
with losing the witch, and with her losing her memories and losing her personality, her reason for revenge, it makes me wonder if anyone else in the 2 worlds holds on to those grudges, and if so, if that would be followed through. Because, other than her minions and her followers, there aren't a whole lot of supporters of the witch, either of them. So it makes me wonder if that may or may not happen.
Gasoline. Memory can always come back too.
There you go.
Not that good.
We got a MacGuffin to take it away. There's a MacGuffin to put it back.
I think it's, I mean, obviously it's one of those classic things where, you know, if you look at the story, Dorothy didn't do anything wrong. She didn't fly the house onto the sister. But, you know, bad things happen, and Dorothy's getting the blame for it. So I think I feel like there's still a lot of world to explore where there's people that could still be after Dorothy. If anything, because she's a good guy. People hate good guys. I do.
Good. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Anything else for tonight? Yes.
I just want to say big ups to Gina for.
That's all I got. If there's more questions, do y'all want to keep going, or it's almost midnight? I don't know.
Not really a question.
Any more questions? Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Yes.
Not really a question, more of a comment.
Yes.
Scott mentioned that you wanted to try this serial play idea here in San Antonio. Matthew and I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for 13 years, kind of known for its live theater.
So for the camera,
I had never seen anything like this in that area, anywhere in that area.
Yeah.
And I have never seen a more dedicated and talented cast than I've seen right here.
Give props to Amy and Matt for feeding the actors.
Yes.
I just drive the car.
Whenever a shipment of Mexico Coke or IBC root beer,
Goodies.
anything like that comes in,
Crispy rice bars, aka crack.
they're like,